Okay, yeah. So as usual, I'm starting with Futurama meme and disclaimer that you should not bet on the fact that 3MDEP will release something, because everything I'm showing here is just rough estimate, and you will just get measures how often we change things. Yeah. So we are really not sure if what I'm showing is a mission accomplished or mission failed spectacularly. Yeah. So all the milestones we're trying to track on the GitHub in the Dasharo issues repository. And of course, you can get updates about what's going on with the milestones from the other presentations. There are linked here. The PDF for the presentation will be also published on the Pretalks. Later, a little bit announcement, I guess this is something most of you know, but I just want to recall to those who don't know, little bit nomenclature clarification. So this is how we call the Dasharo. We typically saying Dasharo core boot plus UEFI, or core boot plus heads, or core boot plus CBIOS. You can also imagine that this could be Dasharo, which is UEFI based. There can be even others, Linux boot based. But anyway, the point is that we typically saying Dasharo core boot plus UEFI Pro package, which means when Pro means for end users, for retail, and enterprise if this is a business to business relation. And then, of course, we're trying to say a segment, but we very rarely say a segment. Typically, we say not desktop, laptop, or we typically say Nova Custom laptop or Nova Custom NV4X or something like that. For the network appliance, we can say PC Engines or PC Engines APU2. Despite for PC Engines, we release binaries with the same version for all the platforms. So that's maybe a special case. But anyway, just wanted to let you know how we express versions, and this is what I will use in further slides. The details about how this presentation look like and what its format, what are the meanings of various blocks that I present here was explained during class. Dasharo user group, I'm explaining this every time, but if you want to learn more, you can just go to Dasharo user group number 9, and there is good explanation in details what I will tell you about the roadmap here. Okay. So yeah, not a record quarter. We did 4 releases. Like the 2 were released today and yesterday. So, but anyway, there are 3 releases which are Dasharo community releases, and just 1 Dasharo support package releases. So you can see that this is probably, or you can see that this is almost the lowest number, almost smallest number for Dasharo support package releases. The point is that we're working on something bigger for our customers, and that's why those releases are delayed. Meanwhile, we can spend a little bit of time, maybe as usual, because we typically spending time for providing you 3 Dasharo community releases, and that's what's going on. Yeah. So our average right now is for 5.2 releases per quarter. Regarding the market split, we did emulation, so QEMU release, which is maybe not so useful for you, but maybe in future there will be some users for that, especially when the confidential computing will grow to the level of need firmware for the virtual machines. But right now, we mostly using QEMU with Dasharo release for QEMU to do the emulation and speed up the validation process. We did 2 releases for a network appliance. This is PC Engines and Protectly, and 1 release for laptop, which is heads for NV4X. This is also quite extensive period for changes. So you can see that we have 19 states changed in this release, which is like one of the biggest one. like second biggest one. We have 7 new releases added. We have 6 releases changed. Three releases already published. So that's, as I said, and 3 releases removed from the roadmaps. Regarding QEMU, so we did this, as I said, we did the release for QEMU Q35, which is this release. This was released on time, VO 2.1, and this release essentially contain, like, the most important part. Okay, I will mention about it on next slide, but the most important part is speed up in booting, which can be even up to 50% boost in booting, which should help us make the tests much faster in the infrastructure, what should help us in delivering the releases faster, I hope. Okay, the core boot plus CBIOS version 0.9 is shifted to the next quarter. So this is to speed up the PC Engines release. And I guess some platforms like Optiplex could benefit from that if we will plan to do Optiplex release. There is also new release 0.3 for Core Boot Plus UEFI for QEMU Q35. And I don't know if this will happen this year, but I just planned this for Q4. Right now, we don't see big need for this, but there are some bug bounty tasks in the milestone. So if you will support us in this, then maybe this release will appear. Okay, and of course, like, you have links here to the GitHub milestones. You can see this. Okay, about this 0.2.1 release, we based it on Core Boot 2503. So you can see it's already the newest Core Boot release. We also use it, I guess, the newest EDK2 stable 2502. And then also, like, iPXE probably didn't change, but yeah, that's the most important change that I already mentioned: the speed up in the boot process, in the boot time. There are also some smaller fixes like this HPAD timer fix. There is still a small bug which will cause some problems, I guess, in some tests, probably heads. And maybe other features which are measured boot related tests, because we have no PCR matching, which means there is something wrong either in the release, either in configuration. The next thing that we did is PC Engines for APU 2346. What happened is that we finally made the release 2408.0001, and this was, and I will discuss about it in more details on next slides. We essentially decided to remove the release based on Core Boot 2503 and Core Boot 2412, because like it was just too big delay. And right now there is plan for releasing this month 2506. So the next release for PC Engines will be based on 2506. And I know there is plan also for UEFI version, and UEFI version most likely will happen in Q3. I guess this one will also most likely happen in Q3. So this one also should be shifted. Okay, this is PC Engines, and about this release that was published, I guess, yesterday. So we rebased to Core Boot to 2408. We used our Dasharo patch queue initiative, which is different way of keeping the release patches, the delta between the upstream and our downstream version. So we essentially have a repository which is called Dasharo PQ. And in that repository, we just keeping the patches which we apply on the top of Core Boot base. So it's like a different method. That's for example Zen server and some other projects use. And we just wanted to learn if this this method could speed up the release process. Right now, we don't see that. But on the other side, we also didn't work too much on improving. Another improvement is use of the newer CBIOS, and this is very interesting because I guess yesterday when we announced this as a release, there was a mail on the core boot mailing list with the announcement of CBIOS 1.17. So yeah, so we were slightly slower, but anyway, we will not manage that anyway because probably 17 introduced some new stuff which we could have to test and so on. So maybe CBIOS 1.17 will be in the next release. We also fixed some stuff in sort boot order. I mentioned that below. We have newer version of iPXE, and essentially all the AMD related blobs like microcode, AGISA stay the same. Support for this improved CBIOS, but I guess this maybe small improvement is that we switched to the newer compiler. Because of the new version of core boot, we have to switch to the new tool chain. That means that all the issues that are detected by the new compiler were fixed to make this release. We also adding in sort boot order support for QEMU, and this is to speed up the validation process in open source firmware validation framework that we use for validation of Dasharo. Okay, regarding Protectly, I keep delaying this, and I will delay this release one more time. But I guess yesterday or 2 days ago, somewhere in this week, there was Trench Boot support blog post on blog3mdev.com, and there is description how we essentially do Trench Boot for UEFI systems. VP4670 was one of the platforms that were validated and should be supported. Optiplex is another platform. I guess we also validated other platforms, but the point is that whatever was like this release was needed to productize the Trench Boot. That was the hope. We were able to close one of the bugs, which is essentially using it was invalid bug because we tried to use incorrect Dasharo with TXT and so on. We just have to produce Dasharo that has TXT support. There is also this problem with microcode, but it seemed like it is more like a kernel issue and just needs testing. There is a milestone for this. I still hope we can make it, but the problem is that platform getting older, and we should essentially try to enable Trench Boot on the most recent platforms. And this is something what is problematic for us because enabling Trench Boot on the platform takes time, and in context of other releases, it's typically delayed. And then, of course, we ending in the situation where the platform's going end of life, and then we get Trench Boot support, which is not very beneficial. So, yeah, this is something we have to think how to fix. Okay, next is a very nice update for hard kernel. We working on 0.91, and the goal is to provide its support. I guess I didn't change the roadmap here, but 0.91 should be in Q3. That's the plan. There is a link to the milestone, and then what we plan here. This is rough plan. So definitely we would like to support H4 plus Ultra, so which is the highest end Odroid H4. There was also a request for supporting in-band ECC. This is something that we will also do. We found some issue with the reproducibility. The reason for that is that if you don't use build timeless for core boot, then you don't getting reproducible builds. This is something that we will improve, change, and will be fixed for the next release. There is also a request for netcard support. So netcard is a kind of hat for Odroid H4, which adding more Ethernet interfaces. It most likely will require another binary. And then there are some other smaller fixes maybe related to secure boot, and maybe other platforms could also benefit with that. So this is it. So you can see that 44% complete. This release is 44% complete. Yeah. So we are on good track to have release somewhere in September. This is also a cool message that I get from Michik. So essentially, Michik did some fast boot and measured how fast Dasharo is booting. So apparently, we can be very, very fast in comparison to the proprietary BIOS vendors. We can gain, without fast boot, we can gain even 50%. With fast boot, we're gaining just 20%. Because AMI with fast boot boots like in 5 seconds something. Of course, there is some fluctuation in this measurement, but we boot 4 seconds something, so like 20% gain. So that's very good, and everyone who cares on boot time on Odroid should use Dasharo. Okay, another release that we were delivered last quarter was heads for laptop. This time, this is the Planet NV4X Core Boot Plus heads 0.9.2. So we managed to do this on time, and I guess that ends our plan for delivering Dasharo Core Boot Plus heads for Nova Custom this year. But maybe there will be some situation needed our attention. This release is quite big. First of all, like it used new version of heads, so that's one updated thing. The other thing is updated microcode, which is also probably important for those who using Raptor Lake devices. And yeah, there is like ton of things in the changelog. You can go to the docs.dasharo.com, supported hardware, Nova Custom, and go to the heads release to read all that. I will not read that for you here. This doesn't make sense, but there is a bunch of improvements in user interface, in interaction for provisioning, in recovery, in debugging. So yeah, so this release is definitely worth to look into. There are some fixes related to cubes, related to some crypto libraries, and there are still some known issues, like this issue with the hotkeys for CubesOS, and this fact that existing CubesOS installation is not found as a bootable after transition back to EDK. So the transition between EDK and heads have some problems. But I don't know how many of you did do this transition. It is important to know that there is some problem there. With Optiplex, we have essentially the same problem. So we did the release last quarter, last quarter of last year, but we have essentially the same situation like with Protectly VP4670. We have this trench boot blog post, and we know things work. We validated on Optiplex, but essentially to make it work, you need to build your own BIOS, and I guess like right now we don't have plans to release that BIOS, but who knows, if there will be a lot of interest around trench boot, we may consider that. Okay. MSI. So some very important announcements around MSI. I'm not saying this is final word, but almost sure I'm saying this is final word. So right now, my thinking is that end of support in Dasharo for MSI Z690 is end of 2026. So yeah, so end of next year. But we will see. We will see if there will be enough people interested, enough people renewing the Dasharo subscription. Then we will definitely consider continuing that. But if this will decline, and we see already decline because this hardware is no longer available on the market, or starting to be not available on the market. Of course, Z790 is still available, but Z690 is no longer available, and there is decline in subscription here. yeah, we will see. So right now the plan is that we will do one more Dasharo Pro package release, which will be this 115. There are some features that we would like to introduce. I guess definitely capsule update, and maybe some other stuff. I guess there's a bunch of features that Dasharo branch already have, and when we will do this the Pro package release, we will gain all those features which are already on the Dasharo branch. Then we're planning to do the community release, which will be public binary for everyone. And then we plan to do one more next year. And that would be end of support. But who knows? Maybe we will continue it for some reason. The same situation is with Z790, just the versions are a little bit different, but essentially the same methodology and the same story. Although Z790 is still on the market, and we will look how long a vendor will deliver the BIOS updates. Okay, I guess, yeah, this is yeah, so this is heads. For heads, we have no more plans. Yeah, and I guess that's it from me. And maybe we should look if there are any questions. Let me look at the Dasharo developers VPUB comments. Okay. Yeah, so there will be update, as I said, this DPP for Z690 and Z7 790. But yeah, that's the point. We kind of going into direction of end of support by end of next year. But we will see. Maybe there will be still some interest. So I guess it's part of the question to community, to those who have this hardware. The volume of this market, I would say, is not that big, but yeah, but that's I guess, like, we could have a discussion during the VPUB, or we can have discussion in various chats to think if there is enough traction, if there are enough people who have this hardware and would like to support this firmware. So the code will always be on the repository. If someone would like to build something new, that's possible. And yeah, what I can say more, like, it's this platform is in decline. We're no longer selling Z690, and at some point we have to say, okay, that's it, that's the end. Like, on the other side, maybe the question is how long we should support the hardware, because when there was first release of Z690, let me quickly check. First release was 2022. So 4 years. I don't know, like, maybe 4 years. So the question is, like, if 4 years is good enough, maybe 5 years. I don't know. Maybe then 2027. But it's very hard right now to say what will be in 2027 and in what shape will be the organization, how the Dasharo support package, Dasharo Pro package for the MSI would look like. Yeah, that's question. But maybe we could do also a situation where we will announce, and then if there will be enough kind of crowdsourcing or enough participants who wants that, then we will do the release. That's completely possible. I'm not saying this is end of the story, but I also have to have some life cycle for Dasharo, and I cannot support platforms forever. Yeah, I guess that there will be status for open source firmware validation from Philip Gołaś, probably right after this talk. So he can definitely say something more about that. Yes, we're struggling with that. Hardware automation is definitely very hard part. This is not server. Server got BMC. Like server don't have typically don't have any graphical output, so like graphical output through GPU, or maybe you can redirect something from BMC, but anyway, the scope of the graphical area and this part of the validation is smaller. So most likely in case of server, you validate the Redfish API and so on, and probably everything you can do remotely. So that's why servers are much easier to validate. Maybe embedded side, like a firewall side, is also relatively easy to validate. But when we're talking about desktop, when we're talking about laptop, when we're talking about even NUCs, which can be used as a set-top boxes or some small desktop devices, those are way harder to validate. And yeah, you know, we have OpenQA, which is written in, I guess, Perl, and you can only imagine how many issues. I guess like you, Demi, know very well how many problems there are with OpenQA and maintaining that. Yeah, I guess it can be. But the answer is yes, it can be more automated, but running 400 tests take time, requires infrastructure maintenance. There is always something broken in the automation tests. Yeah, there are many moving parts, and it is not that easy. And cost of validation is very high always if you want to have something stable. So we can also say after Mr. Chromebox last quarter interview, he's doing release for 300 devices, just booting, and that's it. He's looking at this in a completely different way. In theory, 3MDeb could go in the direction of having nightly builds, which are completely not validated, and you essentially using it on your own risk. Then maybe some weekly, slightly validated builds, and then maybe long-term stable, and that would be the builds that I'm talking right now. So those are the builds who someone wants to use in production, and there is like reasonably good validation cycle for that one. Yeah, and that's some idea that we have inside 3MDeb, and hopefully we can introduce it more widely over time.